just a little bit about agents before we maybe bring Andy back on, just to kind of wrap up, and we'll maybe see if there's any other questions in the chat there, which I can take a look at here if you guys help us out with I think that might be our last poll. If not, we might have just one more. Perfect. Great. And yeah, these responses there. And again, I hope you guys are looking at this and maybe applying, rough estimates to, this is a picture of maybe how your organization uses these applications as well. And yeah, hopefully we're on the mark here a little bit with today's content. You didn't even know they existed until we told you they did. And you just simply need to find them in kind of your myapps.microsoft in the Microsoft Store. Also, that time to learn can be very, very tricky. I'd sound like maybe a bit of a broken record here. Copilot can help you with the training of those things. Even the free version of the web-based Copilot, you can go in and say, tell me more about using Microsoft Loop because I have XYZ meetings, for example. Might be a great one on there. Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Callum, for the note there. Really, really good responses. I think that, hopefully you guys see a little bit of value with some of those core applications. Many of you discovering them, and then that time not to learn. I don't have time to go watch 4 hours of YouTube videos or dive into documentation, but maybe have Copilot create a 30-minute quick onboarding for Loop or OneNote or Planner. Again, in there, I think it was Gary that asked that question. Ask Copilot for examples of Planner. What are real world examples that Planner are being done for? Lots of things that we're just right now in the midst of a kind of a whole transformation here. We went from the on-premise into the cloud, and now we're going from the cloud into this agentic AI and multi-agent systems and kind of all these buzzwords that are going on. If you're a current Copilot user, or maybe you're thinking about getting into Copilot, I want to show you two things that have come out very recently that I think have mass application across pretty much everybody on today's call. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up just Copilot. And so just to show many of you that maybe aren't familiar where we're at, I'm on the web application. If I were to click on the work version of Copilot, that would point that a little bit more into my company, my documentation. But over here on the side, you may have started kind of playing around with some of these things called agents. And again, maybe you're only familiar with something like a Chat GPT. You've seen that there's the specialized GPTs, and there's ones that they're really good at creating pictures of race cars, or they're really good at recipes and cooking without the whole life story. They just give you the ingredients and let you get to baking and cooking. Kind of a specialized bespoke style AI, in addition to kind of this larger generalistic generative AI experience. The two that I would point out to you and show you exactly where they are is all you need to do is come into this All Agents button on the left side. And you can see this is the agent store. And you may have been familiar with some of these little templates that have been around for a couple of months. But these two have recently gone general availability. And I highly advise that if you sit in a little bit more of an analytical position, you get going with the analyst. And if you work with any of your customers or clients, or driving new business, or experimenting with growth, or trying to figure out anything research related, that you really take a look at this researcher agent, both kind of custom built for a specific task. So I do want to put upfront on this, both of these agents take a little bit over 10 minutes to complete their action. This isn't going to be as standard as our back and forth conversations with Copilot and GPT that we've gotten used to that instant response. We want our answers now. As soon as I press enter, I want that processing and response within seconds. I will confirm these take about 10 minutes, but I think what I'm about to show you is worth that kind of forced coffee break, or the forced maybe park it on your second monitor and maybe go back to your emails and Teams for a little bit. The first one I'm going to show you is the analyst one. So I'm going to scroll to the top here, and I'm going to show you the document that I used for this. And so this is a publicly available document from the US space program at NASA on exoplanets. Just to kind of be a little nerdy here and share with you one of my passions in outer space and astronomy. This is 5,800 lines, 78 columns of scientific data. This is about as complex of a data set as you can get, whether you have financial numbers, sales numbers, customer service numbers. clearly too big for any single human mind to grasp and do things with. And again, if you're interested in what Copilot can do on that Excel sheet, reach out to us and we can take you through that in a one-to-one capacity. What I've done with this analyst agent here is I've uploaded that document and I said, create a visualization of the data and find outliers in the data and provide logical guesses as to why they're there. And again, you're starting to see things that maybe some of us start getting apprehensive about. This is Python. Quite literally, in order to understand this data set, I would need to be a data scientist. That can be expensive. That can be very time consuming to learn. You can see that it went through and it took about 10 or 11 minutes to process this sheet. Kind of scroll down and show you what it did and how it maybe ran into errors. And it's looking at the data structure. I didn't even format it or turn it into tables like I should have. And I'll just kind of cut to the bottom here, but you can see it did a lot of work and a lot of thinking for me that, again, is very expensive or very time consuming, but look at what it produced at the visualizations. And so now I've got quite literally something worthy of a PhD or at least a graduate student in astronomy putting together a radius versus mass of these exoplanets and kind of the correlating factors there, or maybe the years of discovery. So it looks like that, in between 2013 and 2016 was a kind of a bonanza of discovery for us, these exoplanets, and that, in a good way, we're trending towards finding more and more of these out there beyond the solar system. And okay, there's the discovery methods. And so which of our detection types is working really, really well? Again, looking at 6,000 rows and 78 columns, I just have to guess and take a best guess. Here, I can tell you that it's the transit method is overwhelmingly more effective. And then we can find some outliers in the data. So again, if you've got maybe some odd things into there, maybe just an extra spike or two in some of the things you're doing in Excel and charting, ask Copilot to come in and ask us analysts for a little bit of help. And it's even offering to do a deeper statistical analysis of the outliers themselves, or help me clean up the data a little bit. And Andy Callum, I know I'm getting close on time, but I will finish out with the researcher agent. And I do want to do a side-by-side comparison of what that looks like. So I'm just going to go back to my Copilot homepage. We're going to give a very basic prompt here. So I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London for the first time a couple weeks ago. We got some big tapestries here with some bears on them, and I got really excited about bears in the UK. Unfortunately, discovered they were extinct, and so I wanted to know a little bit about what would it be like to bring those back in. And so, tell me about reintroducing bears to the UK. We can see there that Copilot's going to give me a fairly standard response. Give me a couple of citations, maybe just 3 sources. It did a good job of giving me a simple answer. What happens if I ask that exact same question to the researcher agent? And so again, if you're doing research about anything into it, this is the exact same prompt. Hopefully it's going to load up for me here. You can see, I just did this back in early May. Tell me about the reintroduction of bears. It quite literally said, I need to know more because I know so much about this subject. I need you to scope it in. And I said, okay, just tell me a little bit about the historical context. And you can see on the right side here how much information it gave me. Again, it took about 10 minutes to process this. But this is kind of Microsoft really making good on the promise of that PhD level candidate student going out and being a deep researcher for you to find information about that. And I'm just astonished at what it came back with this. And whether you're researching clients or maybe yourself, go in and throw your own company into this and see what the World Wide Web comes back with. You can see there it gives me a nice logical conclusion that pulls it all together, as well as my final thing here showing you it's gone and found a lot more sources. This is a much deeper dive and a much deeper analysis than kind of that standard traditional Copilot search and how it goes about that. So again, the researcher and the analyst agent, highly advise that you go into those. And as a final one here, Andy, before I turn it back over and we answer some questions and answers, is just if you want to start experimenting with customizing it, this create agent here is going to continue to evolve. And so maybe you've just gained access to Copilot for the first time and you want to start building some of these agents. Maybe you do something like an employee handbook agent so that everybody in your company can just go into the Copilot agent and ask questions about process and uniform and acceptable use policy and personal devices and whatever that might be. And on the right side is what that agent's going to look like. And so I want to call it the Employee Handbook Assistant. And this requires no coding at all. So you don't need to know the script or code. You can simply have a conversation with the agent, and you can see the right side is going to update that. What tasks or information should it do? Help my users understand my business processes and expectations. You can give it the tone of voice that you'd like it to perform, and you can even input sources. And so I could reference a certain SharePoint site if I've got that company documentation stored, or I could point it at an available site. So I could point it at, I know that's probably not the right site, but I do have a publicly available site there where I can say, yep, go to Microsoft.com for this answer. Do you have any more modifications? And different ways that it's going to curate that. Again, agent creation really gaining steam in this. And so with that, you've probably heard enough about Copilot Agents on this side. And so we'll maybe hop over to a few minutes of questions and answers